Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the meeting of the Cabinet. Today, Wednesday, the 29th of January 2025. Agenda item number 1 is apologies for absence. Mr. Bradbury, do we have any apologies for absence?
Good morning, Leader. No, I'm not in receipt of any apologies for today's meeting.
Agenda item number 2 is declarations of interest in accordance with Standing Order 16. Does anybody have any declarations of interest? For the record, there are none. Agenda item number 3 is the medium-term financial strategy 2025 to 2030. Councillor Parry, this is your portfolio, although I'm cited on this at the top of the report. I think it's really appropriate to hand over to you to take us through the components of the MTFS, so we can perhaps discuss it in a moment and make the recommendations with you.
Thank you, Leader. As you rightly say, I present this on behalf of yourself and myself. This morning, it's the job of Cabinet to agree that this is the medium-term financial strategy that we are content to recommend to full Council on the 13th of February. So I've got a list of recommendations to make to you and a supplementary one that we've agreed this morning that I also need to get your approval on to take to full Council as well. Just in terms of highlights, we know what they are, don't we? At the core of this, the narrative is a council which is well run, efficient, competent, and able to balance its budget. So the current financial year, we will show in draft a small underspend, and the forward plan is that over the next medium-term financial strategy, we will have a balanced medium-term financial strategy for the first 3 years. We also know about the threats that we are facing, the challenges that are ahead of us. Significantly, I think the fact that the national living wage and also, of course, the national insurance increase puts an added burden on all employers, and we're a significant employer. So there's payroll cost additions that we've got to manage and accommodate. But that's not just in-house, if you like. There are pipeline costs to our suppliers that will no doubt in some way be passed on to us. So a significant pressure there for us to manage. And then, of course, we've got the high needs block, and we'll say more about this, I'm sure, at full Council. But it does feel like the government have stolen our credit card here and are loading it with no intention, as far as we can tell, of actually ensuring that that burden does not become put on the shoulders of Stafford taxpayers, but in fact as the government squaring up to its obligations in terms of the high needs block as part of the direct schools grant. The deficit there could be 55 million by the end of this year, and of course growing considerably beyond that. The implications are not just that that debt sits there on our balance sheet, but also that the cost of that in terms of cash can really have a damaging effect on the council moving forward. But positive from our point of view, those are risks and pressures that are in a sense outside of our control, that we did not manage or steer. Those are things which were burdens upon us. But the things that we've been working on, which is developing our investment plans around Cannock Chase and developing the Discovery Centre, the History Centre here in Stafford, and other places such as the Chasewater Innovation Centre in South Shore, which we're hoping to improve with further investment, revitalising the Staffordshire Way, and of course considerable investment in refurbishing our libraries and several places across the county. As I say, the risks, the spending review is coming forward. That's going to be announced in the spring. There's uncertainty around that. There's also uncertainty around what does happen to that statutory override for the DSG, which is due to be taken off next year. And of course, we've got whatever the fairer funding and business rate system reset looks like. And again, that's been something which has been hanging around for a few years with very poor clarity around that. So another potential risk for us to consider. And of course, increasing demand for adult social care and children, which we've been wrestling with for some time now in terms of managing the budget around children's services, etc. So that's pretty much it, Leader. If there's any questions, I'd be very happy to take them. If not, I can move to the report recommendations.
Councillor Pert.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Ian, for the budget report. I just wanted to reflect on where we find ourselves in adult social care, particularly as we look forward within the MTFS timeline. Where we are is that, we support some of the most vulnerable adults within Staffordshire. And I think we've demonstrated in the past and continue to demonstrate a real speed of delivery. We have negligible delays in discharge from our acute and major hospitals. We've actively driven down the number of deprivations of liberty within the last 12 months. We continue to co-produce many of our strategies with partners and with users. And I think what we've really demonstrated is a culture of a continuous improvement. However, and there is always a however with these sorts of things, some of the challenges we face going forwards include a demographic challenge where we're seeing an increase in the number of adults that we're supporting and an ageing population, ageing over 65 by 3% every year. We're also seeing an increased complexity in the people that we're supporting, in the needs that they have. And we also continue to see those workforce challenges, and we will need a greater workforce at the same stage. However, whilst we have those pressures, and we can see them reflected in the MTFS figures in front of colleagues today, I do feel that we're in a really good place to face these challenges going forwards. So not really a question, but I think just wanted to share and reflect on where we find ourselves within adult social care today.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Parry, for the report. Obviously, I want to begin just by reiterating that we are an extremely well-run authority. In fact, I think we're one of the few authorities within England with a balanced MTFS going forward, which is an extremely good position to be in. But as Councillor Pert has raised, we do have challenges facing us. So, as the MTFS report rightly sets out, our concerns about the high needs block funding, the continuing overspend and growing deficit of the dedicated school grant, which is forecast to be over 55 million at the end of this financial year. As you know, we have developed the management plan which identifies actions to mitigate some, and of course I mean some, of the high needs block overspend. The report emphasises the scale of the challenge we're facing with our funding and resources for SEND and inclusion, which is no different, of course, to the majority of councils across the country, and so is one we can't address locally without changes nationally. As a Cabinet member responsible for this area, and as a Cabinet, we're right to be concerned that this spending is the greatest risk currently to our operations as a county council. As a leadership team and Cabinet, we are continually challenging officers about the overspend and the actions being taken to bring these within budget. I'm assured that we're taking actions. However, the national system is so overwhelmed by the needs of children and young people and their families, it is no longer able to respond appropriately. I have grave concerns that the actions being implemented will not address the underlying challenges, and we know that the system has to change. We've discussed previously that there is no easy or simple response to this challenge, and this is a multifaceted challenge. We know we have to provide early intervention and prevention, but we're using the significant majority of funding we have to provide support for those children currently with an educational health and care plan. We know that our mainstream schools need to be even more inclusive. However, resources, not just financial, but staffing, training and academic performance targets, space, etc., do challenge this. This reduces confidence of parents and carers who rightly want the very best for their children, and we need to reduce our reliance on the independent sector. But until we can achieve some of these earlier challenges I've mentioned, we won't have enough of our own specialist and mainstream provision. Central government recognise the challenges and have reported that the system is broken and needs urgent reform. Tomorrow, the call for evidence for solutions for the SEND system being undertaken by the Education Select Committee closes. I'm hoping this provides the impetus to make the changes that are required. I know I'm not presenting a completely bleak position, but I need to stress the ambitions in the management plan and our ability to achieve these. They don't address the challenges to the extent we need in order to be financially secure at the end of this MTFS period. That is not because of the want of trying. Unless something changes nationally, within the next couple of years, we will see the impact on other councils in the near future, which we'll face at the end of this MTFS period. I want to reassure you that we continue to raise these challenges regionally and nationally through forums, including the F40, the Society of County Treasurers, and the County Council Network. We're also sharing this information with our MPs to continue to lob in Parliament on our behalf. As the report also references, the increase in educational healthcare plans also means that we're required to provide the necessary travel assistance arrangements. The pressure on travel assistance budget is as a direct result in the increased numbers of children supported with an educational healthcare plan. There is some positive news with the transport budget this year, but the pressures will remain in future years due to the increase, of course, in the number of children with an educational healthcare plan. So, as I said in the beginning, this isn't a positive picture, but we do need to be clear that left unaddressed, this council will not be able to deliver its statutory responsibilities we hold for our communities across Staffordshire. Thank you.
Councillor DeVille.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And I reiterate previous comments, Chairman, that the reason that we are able to concentrate our efforts on and help the people who need it most, as in my colleague Councillor Price and Councillor Pert's previous comments, is because we are a well-run council, because we do spend our money very wisely. If very briefly, Chairman, I can address my area of work, through being a well-run council, has happily enabled us to invest additional funds into the maintenance of our highways. And just to give you a very quick snapshot of the work that we've done, this extra investment has enabled us to repair almost 30,000 potholes, new potholes, since April of last year. It's also enabled us to clear 53,000 gullies, Chairman. That work is not just important to me and important to us as a council. We do it because this work is really important to our residents. And I commend Councillor Perry and the finance team for presenting this excellent MTFS yet again that enables us to do this important work, Chairman.
Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Chair. Associated with previous comments, also welcome this MTFS. I think from my portfolio's point of view, that green thread runs throughout this MTFS. We've got our commitment to zero waste through our policies we brought forward just recently on that. We've also got our information which we put out about climate change and our reduction in carbon emissions to over 50% at a cabinet not long ago. We also have plans that are coming to cabinet in the next couple of months to take that to the next step and also to look at adaptations to climate change. I think as in Councillor DeVille's portfolio as well, where we are concentrating on flooding issues as well and dealing with those as well with extra funding going in. So I think, and also our country parks, a wonderful environment we have in our county, enhancing that as well. So all good for a very small take from the council tax. We're managing to improve the quality of life and where people actually live and around their neighbourhoods and their environment, which is really key. I think for me as a county council and also as a borough councillor, I'm very lucky. I've got a very well-run county council. We've got a debt-free borough council, and I think in the backdrop of the foolish government's forced local government reorganisation, I think what we have is a two-tier working very well and is delivering for local residents on the priorities that they've got. I think what we do see in other areas where unitarisation hasn't worked is we see savage service cuts and we see council tax of almost 10%. That's not happening here in Staffordshire, either at a county or a district level. It's something we should fight for. As well as we've approached this local government reorganisation, I think we come from a sound footing of sound finances, well-managed councils and delivering for local people, which is the key why we're all here.
Thank you. Before I go back to Councillor Parry for the recommendations, just a few points I'd like to make. First of all, I'd like to respond to the Corporate ONS Committee's MTFS Working Group paper. I'm grateful to the Corporate ONS Committee for their work. They've diligently gone through the medium-term financial strategy, and I know that some of you will have been on the receiving end of some of their questions. They've provided us with a list of recommendations, which I won't go through in detail here, but first of all, destination DMP and send transport. I was going to say destination management plan there, but it's not. Highways, value for money, preventative maintenance and governance of subcontractors, the lobbying of government, waste management and savings and efficiencies were the 5 areas that they referred to in their investigations. We have provided detailed responses to the ONS recommendations, and they're available to look at Appendix 12 should you so wish. It's really important that the work of Cabinet is scrutinised in detail, because this isn't the Cabinet's decision, it's a recommendation that we make to Council, and we need to make sure that we've gone through in some detail, and the more people that help us with that, the better. And senior councillors outside Cabinet who do that work very hard to deliver those recommendations. So thank you to those committees. I want to observe the council tax rates that are doing the rounds in the national media at the moment. There's talk of one council proposing 25% council tax increase. I know of another proposing 15% council tax increase, 10% in other places, and asking government for an exemption to the requirement for a referendum before proceeding with those. We've made some, what's in the jargon is known as some difficult decisions over the past decade plus, and what that does is put us into a position where we're able to invest in the future. Some of the decisions we've made do require putting money back in due course. So, for example, in children's services, we know that the circumstances we face in children's services means that we need to put investment back into children's services to deliver on the promises we make to those families and the children that we look after. And we've done that. And we're able to do that because we've taken prudent financial decisions over the past 10 to 15 years. It allows us to do those things. Likewise with highways. There's an additional request today which will be for investment in highways, which Councillor Parry will refer to in a moment. We're able to do that because we've been well managed and we've run our services efficiently. Which leads me to the final point. For those members of senior leadership team who are around the table now, I'd like you to thank all your departments for their hard work. Without their efforts, without their diligence, without their determination, we wouldn't be able to deliver on a medium-term financial strategy that we have here today, one which only asks for 4.99% from our electorate and for the people that pay the council tax. We take very seriously the power to raise taxes. People have no choice when they're presented with a tax bill. You either pay it or you're punished. And so therefore we make sure, and we're determined to make sure, and we'll continue to make sure, that every pound is wisely spent, that there is no waste, that the investment is well spent, and that we do so on behalf of those people whom we tax to deliver those services. I will single out Mr. Shakespeare and his team for the hard work that they've done. Pete, you've done an outstanding job of getting us to this point this year, and particularly your team that supports you as well. I'd like you to thank them in particular for the work that they've done, and the liaison that they do with the various departments to make sure that the budget that we ultimately see here today is one that we can hold our head up and present to full council in the near future. With that, Councillor Parry, can you sum up please and give the recommendations?
Yep, thank you, Leader, and thanks for your comments. And I'd like to, before I move on to the recommendations, also add my thanks to Pete Shakespeare and to Rachel Spain, the Chief Accountant, for getting us to this point. It's a long process in terms of putting together a medium-term financial strategy and the refreshes of it, you know, involving cabinet members and the corporate leadership team together, thinking about setting out the policies and things, and also about setting out the financial plan that will support the policies and the council plan itself. So lots of work by lots of people, and on the financial plan side, led by our Director of Finance. So I'm really pleased. Also like to reiterate the fact that we are, I think, well served, very well served, and it's not the same everywhere, by our overview and scrutiny, corporate overview and scrutiny working group on the MTFS. This is not an 11th hour look at the budget. This goes back several months, over several months. It is well resourced, well supported, and well advised. Again, Rachel Spain, our Chief Accountant, tends to advise them. It means that they can have an open book look at our plans and to scrutinise our plans. And I think that level of transparency that the MTFS working group brings is really valuable for a number of reasons. One, it provides that level of assurance to taxpayers that this is properly scrutinised, and it also gives people like the leader and myself who present this budget a kind of extra level of security that it has been properly and robustly scrutinised. So pleased with that. I have got a series of recommendations, Leader, and I wondered whether you wanted the full fat or the slimmed down version.
I'm more for the semi-skimmed at the moment, but there is an additional recommendation which you certainly need to refer to in full.
I will, but I think, importantly, I think the recommendations...
I've got Mr. Bradbury scowling at me. Am I allowed? Yes. Okay. There's a full words for you.
That was my intention, except that in there are those detailed recommendations that people might like to be aware of that might be listening to this, which is that there is a net revenue budget of 733.950 million, that there is a council tax increase that we are proposing to council of 4.99%, which will mean that a Band D property will pay £1,621 next year. So I'll move on to the recommendation, the first recommendation, which is about the substantive report, Leader, which is to approve for recommendation to the council. The recommendation is, therefore, that we recommend that as the Cabinet, in respect of the medium-term financial strategy 2025 to 30, Cabinet agrees all of the recommendations set out in the attached report. I can have agreement to that first.
All those in favour?
And then, secondly, that we, the Cabinet, recommend to the County Council on the 13th of February 2025 that they consider and approve the release of up to £15 million from earmarked reserves for further investment programme, with details to be appended to the Council report, which will be published shortly.
So that's the additional recommendation. Mr. Bradbury, have you noted that recommendation for inclusion? All those in favour of the additional recommendation?
Agreed.
That is agreed. You still on a roll?
No, we're done.
Excellent. Right. Oh, I'm trapped. Right, with that, ladies and gentlemen, just to check my agenda before I release us, there are no items for exclusion of the public, so with that, the meeting is closed. Thank you.